So I've had a couple of requests lately to do a rework tier list. Like, I've done a lot of videos in the past where I've covered a lot of reworks and like what I think about them and my overall thoughts, but I haven't really done a video where I address every single rework, and I think a tier list format for that is pretty good, so we're going to get into this. So I have these 13 characters up here. These are all the characters that, in my opinion, have been majorly reworked. I'm not including characters that have had like small minor reworks, like Fenrir, for example, where they changed the fact that his 2 doesn't consume runes and that Brutalize does AoE damage without runes. Like, small reworks like that I'm not going to be including. Just these 13 characters I have here that I think have been majorly reworked are going to be included in the tier list. Also, for any of you wondering where original Ao Kuang and original Sun Wukong are, I'm not including those either because I don't really class those as reworks. They were more like new god releases, and then the old kit was given to like an existing god. So like Ao Kuang's old kit, it wasn't really reworked into new Ao Kuang's kit, it was just given to Kukulkan, and Ao Kuang was a new god release, if you kind of understand that. It's not really a rework in my eyes, so I'm not including them. But kicking this off with Arachne, Arachne is either C or D tier. I hate Arachne. I hate what they did to her. I'll go C tier just because D tier is like complete garbage, absolutely ruined the character, which I don't think they did, because there's still quite a few people that enjoy Arachne and that kind of playstyle. It's not like they completely obliterated the character, but especially for me, I feel like old Arachne was much more fun. Like, don't get me wrong, old Arachne had problems, and personally, I think she did need some kind of rework. I'm not saying she shouldn't have been reworked at all. I'm saying the way they did it was really bad in my opinion. New Arachne just feels too snowbally, too reliant on her auto attacks. Her ultimate feels really terrible. Like, the old Arachne's ultimate was also kind of terrible, but it was fun and it was memey. Like, an ability can be terrible, but also be fun and memey. Like, almost like Anubis in a way. Anubis is kind of bad, but he's really fun and memey. He's fun to play. A lot of people enjoy him, so I personally don't think Anubis needs a rework. But Arachne is not memey, not fun. Most people don't enjoy her, especially playing against her. Sorry for you Arachne mains that actually do enjoy the character. I'm kind of shitting on your main here, but I really just don't like Arachne, and I don't think she's enjoyable. A lot of people agree with me. Playing against her is just awful. She has like some of the biggest snowball in the entire game, and it's not really what I would call fun snowball like Thanatos. It's really just, oh, I'm going to press 3 on you and then walk at you and there's nothing you can do about it and I'm going to stun you and you're dead. It's like, there's not too much counterplay to it if she gets ahead, and if she gets behind, she's almost useless, and the team that has her just hates having her. So in general, I think this rework was terrible, and if there was a question of should she be reworked again, absolutely 100%. I think she's a cool character, like lore-wise and almost like visuals-wise, I think she's quite cool as well, and I think it would be really good if I could actually play her and enjoy having my teammates play her, and she'd not be complete garbage, so I hope they rework her again, personally. So from a terrible rework to a really good one, I think Bastet is one of the better reworks they've done so far. I don't know whether to put her in S or S+, personally. I think I'll go with S, because S+ is like kind of reserved for like almost perfect reworks at this point. I'm not going to be using SS tier for this. S+ is going to be like my almost perfect reworks that like almost everything was done correctly, I think, and SS will be like the perfect rework, turned a complete garbage character into one of my favourite characters, which won't be used in this tier list. So the Bastet rework, I think, addressed a lot of the problems that I had with her. They could have done a little bit more, I think, but the new ultimate is basically what I asked for. Like, if you go back and look at one of my predicted rework videos where I said like which gods should be reworked and how I think I would rework them, what I'd change, what I'd keep the same, I actually suggested that they give Bastet a big steroid on her ultimate that gives her like additional effects on her abilities, and that's ended up being exactly what they did, so hire me, high-res. But yeah, in general, I feel like they kept Bastet's kit familiar enough because the 1, 2, and 3 are basically the same. The 3 got a root, but then like the ultimate just feels so much better. Like the old Bastet ultimate was what was keeping her down as like a character that I really didn't like, because it was just, oh, she pressed 4 on you and you're now boxed in by 3 cats and you can't do anything, but once you reach 15-20 minutes into the game, you just press 2 on the ground as Scylla and the cats die and they're useless. Whereas her new ultimate, obviously it's not balanced yet, I think it needs some severe nerfs, but once they do nerf Bastet into like a reasonable state of balance, like even if she's a little bit powerful, as long as she's not completely broken kind of like she is now, I think it could be a really fun rework and something that I could really enjoy playing. So Freya, I think, is B tier. Not as bad as Arachne, but even through like the multiple reworks that Freya's received, she's actually one of the few gods, if not the only one, that have received multiple reworks and she's still not in a balanced state. For me, if you've reworked a character 2 or 3 times and they're still not balanceable or fun, then it's a failed attempt at a rework in my opinion, which is B tier. Honestly, the only reason she's not like the lowest rework on this entire list is because of how much I hate what they did to Arachne. That's the only reason. So like, Freya is one of the worst reworks in my opinion, simply because it's a completely failed rework, like I said. They've tried to change her because she was unbalanceable. She was either completely broken or terrible. They've tried to change her. They failed again because she's still broken or terrible, unbalanceable. So ultimately they failed with the Freya reworks. Guan Yu, A tier. So I'm sure a lot of you know the legend of release beta Guan Yu. He was a pretty broken character back then, and honestly, with this rework, it's kind of just like A tier because, yeah, it's a decent rework. They didn't do anything amazing, but they turned a completely broken character that was kind of bad for the game and made him into a pretty fun character that honestly is relevant in some metas, isn't in others, but that's honestly fine. I think post-rework, Warrior Guan Yu is pretty much a fine character. I wouldn't change too much about him. The initial rework had a few issues, like his passive was a bit kind of terrible, but they've since kind of mini reworked the passive as well and made it interact with abilities a bit better, and I think it's pretty good. Kali rework I think is B+. So personally, the only reason this rework isn't a little higher is because I don't like the new Kali kit. I didn't really particularly like the look of the old Kali kit either, but I think it was pretty cool. But personally, I think when they reworked her, they just took a mediocre kit and made it into a mediocre kit. Don't get me wrong, I can enjoy Kali myself, but when I just come up against her and she just stuns me and then holds left click and if she's about to die presses 4, it seems like a really uninteractive character for me that's just like, oh, I'm gonna farm early game, if I get past 20 minutes and get my items online, I can just hard carry the game, otherwise I feed. So for me, I know there has to be characters like that in the game, but I feel like with Kali it's just so uninteractive and unfun a lot of the time when you're playing against her. Like, it can be fun to play as her, don't get me wrong, like when you're just running around getting pentakills and stuff, but it almost feels a bit no skill. Like, I know a lot of people are probably going to hate on me for this, saying Kali's a no skill god, and she's not no skill, she's just, I think she's quite low skill. Like, you don't really need to do too much with her, you just need to stun and then hold left click on someone with haste and katana and you win. So ultimately I feel like they reworked a god that was pretty meh into a god that's also pretty meh, so like it was ultimately a failed rework, which is why it's below the balance point of reworks of being A tier, but it's not completely terrible like Arachne. I don't completely hate new Kali like I hate new Arachne. Nike, B+, so this is a personal one. I'm sure a lot of other people would rate the Nike rework much higher than this, but for me, I don't like the new Nike, and I didn't like the old Nike either. It's kind of similar to Kali in a way, in that, like, I think they took a character that I didn't really enjoy that much, they changed her, and I still don't enjoy it that much. Like, I think they needed to do more with her kit. Like, the ultimate, I feel, is just kind of boring, honestly. Like, oh, you get a health shield and you do some damage. I feel like it could be a lot cooler, and I just wish they'd done more with this rework. It's not completely terrible. Like, I think they did improve the character a little bit. Pre-rework Nike was probably my least favorite warrior in the entire game, but now she's probably like, I like her more than Shaq or something, like some of the warriors that I like a bit less, but she's still not a character I enjoy, which is why I think it's ultimately a failed rework. So this list is looking a little biased right now, and I promise some of these later characters will probably be in higher tiers, but I think the Nox rework is B tier. Once again, this is simply because I don't like the character they created post-rework. Pre-rework Nox was actually really interesting, and I really liked her kit, and I wish they'd have sort of gone to a bit more of an effort to balance her kit and maybe rework, like do a partial rework on it instead of changing pretty much her entire kit. Like for me, post-rework Nox, I really like her 3 and I really like her ultimate, but I really hate her 2 and her 1 and also her passive. Her passive's just garbage and annoying because you lose the candles immediately after taking any amount of damage and it's just kind of pointless. The 2-1 combo is obviously the reason everyone hates Nox, and I wish they would have changed that in the rework. Like if they could rework Nox in the future, definitely keep the ultimate and the 3 because they're really cool. I feel like the ultimate, you know, firing into a team fight and getting all that damage reduction off is a really cool and unique like mage ultimate. And also the dash is obviously really cool, like you can dash into teammates, dash through enemies into teammates and do double damage, things like that. But I feel like pre-rework Nox was more enjoyable, which is why I ultimately think this was a failure. It's in the same tier as Freya, but for a different reason. Freya was just like, oh, they took a character that was unbalanceable and still made her unbalanceable, which is a failure. But for Nox, I feel like her old kit was more enjoyable than her new kit, which is why it's in low tier. I feel like if they took multiple aspects of her kit and kind of merged them together, like maybe keep the 3 and the ultimate from the new kit, but then like the 1 and then the passive from the old kit maybe, or just the 1, and then like make her 2 a new ability that kind of plays into that supportive mage style theme, and maybe even make her like try and push her being viable in support, because I think Nox support's really cool, like because like the ultimate's really good for support Nox, and if they added like the damage mitigation on the 1 and stuff, it could be really cool. But ultimately I don't really like Nox's new kit, which is why this is in low tier. So Nuwa, I really want to put this one in like low tier because I simply loved Nuwa's old kit so much, but I also like Nuwa's new kit, so I'm going to put it in A tier. For me, Nuwa's old kit was just amazing, and I really wish they'd have kept it the way it was. The whole interaction with the crystals, like being able to empower your new ability, abilities. The old 3 was really nice, how you could like hit towers with it. It was quite unique with that, and it was like an on-demand stun. The cage is also really nice. Like, obviously they couldn't revert this rework because Ganesh now has that ability, but like it works well on Ganesh. I think it worked well on Nuwa as well, possibly even better on a mage than it works on a Guardian, I think, and I really liked Nuwa's old kit. But the reason it's not in low tier, like I said, is that I also like Nuwa's new kit. I think it's pretty cool. Like the whole interaction with spawning clay soldiers and like exploding them, the fog's pretty cool. The passive is something I really like. I think it's one of the coolest mage passes in the entire game because you can just like auto attack the wave, stack it up, and have a route ready to like do your combo on people. The only thing I really hate about Nuwa's new kit is the ultimate. Like, the whole vision mechanic's cool, but the fact that it's just so uninteractive, like, it's just a way if you're getting dived on, you can get to safety, or, like, if you want to kill someone, you press 4. Like, I kind of wish they'd, like, minorly rework the ultimate, and maybe minorly rework the 1 as well, and I think Nuwa could be really cool. So, Odin is a plus, I think. Odin is, like, a good rework. I think they did quite well with it, other than the fact that he's really unbalanced. Like, for these considerations, I'm thinking, like, how they will be once they're balanced, like, a few months down the line, because obviously Odin and Bastet are quite high here, but they're really broken and not very fun right now. But I think once they get nerfed into like a balance point, like, I'm judging their overall kit, not like the busted numbers they were released with, because Hi-Rez want everyone to play them after the rework. The only reason Odin's not higher, like, I think Odin could have been like S tier or maybe even S plus if they'd have done a little bit more. I feel like changing the 3 and the ultimate was kind of nice, but for me, and I know this is probably an unpopular opinion again, Odin's problems come from the whole bird bomb thing, and like they kind of address that because Odin often plays, like, he plays less around the bird bomb now. Like, often you use the shield for an actual damage shield now, and it can kind of be utilized in multiple ways rather than just press 2, press 1, someone's dead. And the new 3, I think, is a really cool design, how it, like, pulses and you can get different effects. Like, his new 3 is really kind of pulls this rework up a lot. If they'd have messed up the new 3, it'd have probably been, like, a B plus or maybe even A tier rework. But, like, the new 3 is really cool. I just wish they'd have done a little bit more into, like, reworking his bird bomb, because I feel like his leap and his 2 are basically one ability at this point, and if they'd have changed those a little bit more, this rework would have been a lot more enjoyable for me. Ratatoska, A tier, much for similar reasons as Nuwa actually. I did really like Ratatoska's old kit, but I also really like his new kit as well, so I can't really complain too much. I think the rework was just neutral. Like, that's what A tier is, really. It's kind of neutral. They didn't really make the character a lot better, but they didn't ruin the character either. Like, old Ratatoska was a lot cooler, I think, but also a lot less healthy for the game, whereas new Ratatoska is a little less cool, a little less interesting to play, but he's a lot healthier for the game and a lot easier to balance. Like, the old Acorns were just sick. Like, you could build the healing Acorn if you wanted to go solo Rat. You could go, like, the Opal Acorn, which was obviously busted, but they could have nerfed it into balance, I think. Like, if you wanted to go, like, a jungle build, or even a mid build with the Opal Acorn can work as well. And then even the Stun Acorn, I think it was Topaz? Yeah, it was probably Topaz. The 2-second stun Acorn where you dash through someone, if you dash back through them, because obviously the dash reset the cooldown on his original kit, so you could dash through people multiple times as long as you were hitting people, but if you dash through the same person twice, you'd stun them for 2 seconds if you had the Topaz Acorn, which I fucking loved. Like, being able to just stun people for 2 seconds as support Rat, like, it wasn't viable, don't get me wrong, but it was absolutely, like, hilarious for meme strats in casual conquest and stuff. And I feel like when they reworked Rat, he lost a lot of that magic that his kit had, like, mainly just in the Acorns. Like, the whole interaction with the 2 and dashing through them to get the Acorns come back was really cool, I think, as well, but ultimately the Acorns were what I miss, and I think if they'd have reworked Rat into his current kit, maybe with a couple of small changes, but also kept his Acorns, it would have been so much better. If they'd have kept the Acorns, changed his kit a little bit, you know, made it so that he still had, like, the viable, like, healing strat for solo, the viable damage strat for jungle, maybe even mid, the viable, like, stun and CC strat for support. He could have been one of the coolest characters in the entire game, I think, with how much flexibility he could have had. And I think if they'd have implemented the old 4 Acorns, maybe slightly changed into his new kit, this will be like an S plus or SS rework. Because ultimately, I really like what they did with his abilities, like giving the ult a knock up. I like the fact that the 3 can stun and things like that. The 2 is a little bit, like, less interesting, but overall, like, the ultimate was really good on his overall abilities. I just hate what they did to the Acorn and the whole passive thing. So ultimately, if they'd have not butchered the Acorn and kept them for the new kit, I think this will be an S plus or SS rework, but it's kind of sad what they did to him. So the Raven rework is S tier, I think. For different reasons than Bastet, but they took a character that was one of the least balanced, weakest releases I've ever seen, that was completely just unfun to play for most people, even though I quite enjoyed him on release because I enjoy playing bad characters and shitting on people with them. I just think it's fun. But he was a really terrible release, and they took that and made it into a kit that's fun and quite strong. And ultimately, I think that just deserves an S tier for this placement. Like, they took a character that was right in the dumps. Everyone hated them, they were terrible, and they made it into a character that is very balanceable, very fun, and ultimately a lot of people like him, including myself. And you can't really argue with that, so I think this rework is just S tier straight up. So the one rework that I think slightly beats out Bastet and Raven is the Thor rework. Ultimately, I think this one's very close to SS. They took a kit that was already very fun, I already enjoyed Thor, but he was falling off a lot because he was one of those older gods that didn't really have too much spice in his kit, and a lot of his abilities were quite clunky because they were designed like 6 years ago. They took that kit, they added some spice to it, and they made him a viable god again. Like, slightly more than viable, he's quite broken, but I think after a few more nerfs, he can come down into like a tier of like reasonable viability, but not completely broken. And they took a kit that was getting a little bit dated and boring, and it was causing him to be a little less viable. They gave it some spice and like shot him straight back up into viability. And it allows me to play one of my favourite gods again, that I stopped playing Thor for a long time because he was just boring, honestly. Like, they added some spice to his kit with this rework, and it was near perfect, personally. And finally, Vulcan, I think, is A tier for similar reasons to a lot of these, in that I enjoyed his previous kit, but I also enjoy his new kit as well, so ultimately it's fairly neutral. For those that don't know, Vulcan's old kit was almost like a Torbjorn-esque character from Overwatch in that he relied a lot on his turrets. Like, his 2 turret was still a thing, but his 3, instead of being Magma Bomb, was throwing down another turret that did like pulsing AoE damage in a circle to people. And then his ultimate, like, empowered his turrets with a bunch of extra damage, health, and protection, so he could just, like, go ham for a while. And I think it was a really cool kit design that I hope they do bring back onto some gods in the future, or just onto one god where, like, they're really focused around deployables and turrets and pets and that kind of stuff. I feel like a kit revolving around that could be really cool, designed in the modern day with some of the new designers and the new theories and the new practices that high-res have, like, come to be accustomed to, because the Vulcan rework was a long time ago. But as much as I did think the old Vulcan kit was pretty cool, I do like new Vulcan kit as well. New Vulcan's really cool. I think, like, ultimately it's just a quintessential mage that is very balanceable, very fun. A lot of people can enjoy him. He's fun to play against as well. He has some hype plays with the ultimate and like backfire and like magma bomb into backfire things. The turret's pretty cool. Like, ultimately it's just a very fun character, so I can't really complain about this rework, but it wasn't amazing either. But that's it for my rework tier list. As I said, I'm not going to be including like minor reworks like Fenrir and things like that, so if you see a character that you think should have been on here, it was probably not on here because it was either too minor, or it was something like, for example, Hel. I didn't include Hel either because there's just not enough information on what Hel was like before her rework. There's a couple of like rumors around, but there's no real like hard concrete evidence of what Hel was like before the rework, and I don't want to place her on a tier list based on just rumors and things. But anyway, that's it from me on this rework tier list. Let me know your thoughts down below on all of these reworks, like if you thought I placed any really badly. I'm sure there's some pretty controversial opinions on like Nike and Kali, for example, maybe even on Bastet because she's quite broken after the rework. But ultimately, I think I did a decent job of staying unbiased here, but like some of my biases slipped through just because I can't not let it slip through, like with the Nike and stuff. I don't like Nike. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out, you nerds.